Under the scope. Hey everybody, another Scope movie sneak preview.
It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back. He's back.
I'm back. I'm ready to talk about the latest movie from Matt Damon and Ridley Scott. This is the film adaptation of the book of the same name. Of course, I'm talking about The Martian. Jared?
The Martian. What have they teamed up with in the past? You said the latest from Ridley Scott.
Well, I didn't mean that. That was incorrect grammar. I don't need grammar police after me right now. I'm just
fine.
I'm just reeling from that space saga. Jared, besides Matt Damon, who was in this darn film?
It's a veritable who's who in Hollywood. I don't know. There's a lot of people.
Start naming them.
Let's see. Let's just go with the crew of the Mars
ship.
mission. We've got Jessica Chastain. We've
Bing.
got Michael Pena.
Bing.
We've got the Winter Soldier himself, Sebastian Stan.
Yes.
We've got Invisible Woman herself, Kate Mara. We've got some other dude I don't know his name.
He plays a German named Vogel.
Don't know. That's the cast. Back on Earth, we've got Jeff Daniels.
Boom.
Head of NASA. We've got Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Boom.
As like the
I give you a double boom for that one.
Oh,
boom.
I'm a big Chiwetel guy. You know me.
You are.
You've got Sean Bean.
Yes.
You've got Kristen Wiig.
Sadly, Sean Bean gets decapitated in this film as well.
Amazing that he's had such a terrible run in films. You've got from the sort of hit AMC TV series Halt to Catch Fire, Mackenzie Davis. You have Donald Glover in a small little cameo role as a astro something. He's a scientist of some sort.
So one of the fancy scientists.
The main engineer at the JPL is Benedict Wong. There's some Chinese actors. I'm sure that's a big, international tie-in because every film has to have a Chinese component now.
Yeah.
I think that covers it, right?
It does. So, so let's give the basic plot of this this terrific film called The Martian.
So the film starts on Mars in an undetermined year. They don't really tell you what year it is, but sometime in our near future.
They dance around that.
And Earthlings have made it to Mars. I don't know if this is the first manned mission, but it's definitely the fourth or third in a series of 5.
I believe it is the third.
Ares missions to Mars. And things are going well. They're doing soil samples. They're doing their sciencey stuff. They're doing what you do when you go to Mars. But then the warning comes in. A storm is approaching. Time to bug out. Got to abort.
Bug out.
So everyone climbs aboard the spaceship, except, oh no, astronaut Mark Watney is knocked out of by some sort of equipment.
Yep.
He's gone. They've
Life
lost
support
communication
is
with him. He's presumed dead. So everyone gets on the board of the ship, takes off,
And movie over. That's it.
That's it. It was a very short tale.
Totally diverged from the book.
But brilliantly shot by Ridley Scott.
Yeah. How he stretched that into 2 hours, I don't know. But
obviously, it turns out that Mark Watney survived. And he starts running the math. He's got to figure out that he's got to live a long time on Mars if he has any chance of surviving. So he starts to figure out his problems, starts solving things, sciencing the hell out of this.
He has to
science the shit out of it.
He has to live for hundreds of souls, which they don't really explain.
Is that a Martian day?
So it is because Martian days are, I believe, they are longer than Earth days.
Are they? Or are they shorter?
Or it's different, so they don't call them days.
I know the year is longer, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it just so they call it souls.
So he's got a limited amount of food supply and limited oxygen, water. So he's got to figure out how to produce all of these things he needs to survive, and at some point, hopefully, communicate back to Earth that he's still alive.
Yes. And at the same time, Earth is also eventually going to find out that he is alive, and then they start trying to figure out how they're going to rescue him.
Indeed.
And then the third part is the crew that abandoned him in the first place are on their way back to Earth, and when are they going to get involved in this whole situation, and what part are they going to play in the
At what point is it going to turn into Star Trek 3?
It's a very
steal the ship and go back and save their buddy on the planet.
It's a very good question, Jared.
Yes.
So that is the film, and then it's pretty much Mark trying to figure out what he can do to get home, and then everybody else also contributing in very scientific and matter-of-fact manners.
Yeah.
So, Jared, I've read the book.
Yes.
You have not. So what did
I don't read.
He's illiterate. I don't know how.
What damn words?
I don't know how he does any coding, but darn it, he does it. Jared, what was your take on this Ridley Scott adventure?
Overall, I really enjoyed the hell out of this film.
It's like you scienced the hell out of it.
I did. I scienced the hell out of it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was in 3D, and I thought the 3D was used very, very well.
Subtle.
for whatever reason, 3D in space movies works out really well. So,
i.e. gravity, for instance.
there's not too much going on in the frame sometimes, so you're able to focus on what you're supposed to focus on.
Yes.
But, no, I was compelled by this story throughout its entire 2 hour, 20-some minute run.
Mm-hmm.
There's something really, really interesting about a person alone in very extreme circumstances and having to just figure out creative ways to keep going, keep pushing forward. It's a Robinson Crusoe story, but on a planet, not our own.
And an intellectual journey, Jared.
Yes, there's a
Key component of this film.
There's a very scientific component. Now, whether or not all the science is clean or good could be up for debate. I think there might be some sketchy science at times, but overall, there's enough. What I at least saw was good science to keep it pretty grounded in reality of the near future.
He doesn't read, but he does know science to a certain degree.
Yes, at least I think I know science, and this film
Makes you feel like
made me feel like I knew a little bit of science. Doesn't mean I actually do, but the film does a good job.
Absolutely. So the acting, I think, is solid across the board.
I think it's great. I think, if there's any problem, it's like I think you have such a broad, diverse cast.
Yes.
That there isn't a lot for some of the characters to do. I mean, you've got Kristen Wiig, who is not really playing her usual funny self. She's a little more serious. She gets a couple jokey lines in there, but you kind of want to see more of her. You definitely want to see more of Donald Glover.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is solid, and you want to see more of them, but there's
too many moving parts.
You can only give supporting cast so much time. I mean, obviously this film is about Matt Damon as Mark Watney, so he's going to get the bulk of the screen time.
He is.
Yeah.
So let me talk a little bit about the differences between the book and the movie.
Okay.
Overall, and sometimes it's hard to separate them, especially if I just finished reading the book a couple of days ago. So it is extremely fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
The book is, I will say that the book, in like this movie, it takes the whole story in a very matter-of-fact way.
Okay.
I mean,
That's what I've heard.
It's not overly dramatic.
Yeah.
And I would say that Damon brings a drama and a sadness and a worried nature to a Mark Watney character that was not present in the book.
A little more dry and a little more pragmatic in the book.
He's very pragmatic, like, okay, I have this problem and now I'm going to do this. And maybe that's just how he does his journal entries, because that's how you interact with Mark Watney. You're reading what he has written. In the book, you get to see him in between or in the movie rather, you get to see him in between those moments.
Okay.
And you see moments of weakness and worry that you don't capture in the book. And I think that obviously that is a choice that you have to make, because you have to think that, okay, in real life, is this guy going to be scared in these things, or is he just going to be a robot that's going to go through the process and just figure out these things, like a calculator, one problem at a time. In the book, you don't think of the Matt Damon approach.
Okay.
You think of it as, okay, it's just, I'm a scientist and I'm going to use science to get out of this stuff. So that was a little jarring initially.
Well, I think they had a nice ebb and flow to the emotional components to Watley.
Yeah.
Or Watney. There were times when he was, very focused on just survival tasks and getting things done. There were times when he just, would break down and, things were going really poorly for him and he would, have an emotional moment. So, it was nice to have kind of an ebb and flow.
Sure. Another thing that was quite different, actually, is a lot more...
They weren't on Mars in the book. Very strange.
They're on Venus. There were many more bad events that happened to him in the book that they cut out.
There's like 3 or 4 major ones in the movie.
Yes, I mean, and there are things like on his main drive, a lot of bad things happen. There's more bad things happen with the nav. I mean, there's a lot of things that he goes through that they probably smartly cut out because the movie already is long. And in the book, since he dealt with things so matter-of-factly, a lot of the problems were just sort of, they came and they went. In this one, it might have felt like piling on in the movie, so you can cut. I mean, he's already in a bad situation.
Yeah. So how much trouble do you want to make for him, honestly?
so we have to sort of deal with that. The third act and post and right before the credits, that's way different. There's a whole plot line with the crew feeling guilty about leaving him back, and especially the captain.
Sure.
That they play up much more in the movie than they do in the book.
Okay.
I mean, it weighs on them, but they don't. There's just certain things that don't happen. So that was a little weird. And then the only other thing is that the Jeff Daniels character, who is the director of NASA.
Yep.
NASA. He came across a little cartoony sometimes in some of his
In the movie?
compared to the book. In the book, it seemed like everyone was debating these things. What do we do? What are some of our plans? In a little bit more of a rational way. So, but I think that you have to give some tension and some drama.
It is a movie.
To the movie, right? So, and then the other thing is the passage of time, Jared.
Yeah.
The movie, I think, a little bit struggles with that because he's there so long.
Yeah.
And so it just will cut between, okay, he's here for 10 days, now he's here for 70 days or whatever, 70
Right.
souls. In the book, it's so complicated and there's so much going on and you're reading through that stuff that it feels like the passage of time plays out a little bit more understandably in the book than it does in
a little
the
more
movie.
linear.
Yeah. But I mean, still,
Yeah.
I think it's a terrific representation of the book.
Okay.
And the edits that they chose to make were good. I don't know if they needed to play the ending out quite the way they did.
A little too happy.
A little
ending.
too dramatic. But overall, still pretty good. Interesting between a comparison between this and Gravity, which is another movie that you would really compare it to.
Also came out in October 2 years ago.
So Gravity, much more dire.
Yes.
I would
also a much more compressed time frame too. So,
and I would almost say that the terrible stuff that happens in Gravity is probably more akin to what happened in the book in The Martian. I mean, she dealt with a lot of cascading things, which this also did.
Yeah.
Just the book did over extended period of time, but there was a lot of bad stuff.
Okay.
But overall, pretty well done.
There's a couple things, or at least one thing that I would point out that I thought was I didn't really care for in the film, and that was that I think it sort of telegraphed some of its big dramatic moments a bit too obviously.
Yep.
Like there were moments where like, boy, we really hope something doesn't go bad.
Yep.
Cut to something going bad, and it's like, okay, you could have been a little more subtle with that,
and
caught us off guard a little bit. But as soon as he said that, I hope something doesn't go wrong.
It literally went wrong.
Yeah,
in the next
it was
scene.
like, okay.
And so, Jared, like that is a key scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And they lead up to why that failure happened, how it did.
Okay.
In the book.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more to it.
Yeah.
So,
Other than them just rushing to get the thing launched.
yeah. I mean, again, the book is very sciencey and very, very detailed, and pretty much everything is covered in that direction.
Sure.
And so the movie, again, I mean, they're cutting stuff out in the best judgment of the director, obviously.
Right, and you can't show everything. It would be boring for movie audiences. So.
Absolutely.
So that was, if anything, that was just the thing that the fact that some of the cast didn't get a lot of time to work their magic
Yep.
and the telegraphing of some of the more dramatic moments. I thought those are the big faults I saw with the film.
But Jared, it does. It's almost like a promotional piece for the space program, for humans looking to the future, humans working together with China, which is a little heavy-handed in the movie, but in the book, it's played much more realistically. But it just
Right,
goes
and
to
I think when you're talking about exploring other planets in the solar system, you're going to have international cooperation like that. So.
And as we talked about before, the movie is definitely pro-science. It's pro, solving problems with your brain and logic, which some might argue is lacking in our society. And I think that this.
But you can't shoot your way off Mars.
Yeah, I think that this movie might actually get a little grief from certain people in certain political parties, perhaps.
Really? Because it's so pro-science?
That it's so pro-science, and so... Or
you think he could have prayed his way off?
I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't know. I think that it definitely pushes that, like, hey, we can think our way through problems, and we can solve problems with our brain.
If you just believe in the flying spaghetti monster, you would get off Mars in 2 days.
There you go. So we've reviewed it. We've talked about it. The only thing left is to give it an official Scope score.
The Scope score is 3 1/4 stars.
3 1/4 stars, guys.
Yeah, a very good film. Not perfect. Definitely has some flaws. I think if you were a person who has read the book, you might find more things in the film that you didn't like than if you're coming at it with a clean slate like I was.
And there's sneaky editing in the trailers to make you think things are going to happen that don't happen. which I was worried about. And they actually had it in the trailer, but then in the movie they played it straight and close to the book. So sneaky on them, but good for them for doing the right thing at the end.
Good. Does that help with the marketing, you think, the way they cut the trailer?
I think that it tries to make it more emotional.
Okay.
And I'll tell you off camera what
Very
it is.
good.
So for Jared and Shane, this has been our review, but tell everybody how they can communicate with us.
Well, what you need to do is you need to travel about 400 clicks
Yep.
away. You need to dig up an old space probe from the
Yep.
90s, drag it back to your habitat, clean it up, and then hook it up to a fresh battery, and then maybe you can like, comment, and subscribe down below.
Perfect. It's just that easy, Jared. So now, for real this time, that I gave you a little fake out on how we're going to close that interview or this review out. Now we're really closing it out. So for Jared, I'm Shane. This is The Scope. See you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves once again at the end. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I have. Fear not, Scope faithful. The days shall pass as if they were but a moment, and Jared, Adam, and Shane will return with another thrilling episode. Until then, send your comments to comments@thescopeshow.com or leave a voicemail message by dialing
612-21-SCOPE. That's 612-217-2673.
Thanks for listening, faithful fans. This is Tony Partington saying arrivederci. Tune in next time to another terrific edition of The Scope.